was a curious thing that I seen, and we'll go over some of these things that was in the report, and I'll tell you a little bit more about them. So on page 9 of 50, it shows a report that was unusually not up to date in terms of 2021, 2022, 2023. It goes back to 2016 to 2018, and it shows that there is a graph of how many properties are listed on Airbnb, and it uses data collected from one of the data collection sites called AirDNA. And it says in July 2018, the total number of listings on Airbnb was 12,500 properties. And it shows that that was the total number of listings for Edinburgh. So it shows a pattern that there's predominantly in the capital a real demand for short-term lettings. It also said that the distribution was roughly 50-50 between an entire property being let or someone letting out their room. So for those of you who don't know, on Airbnb you can either let out an entire property that's completely completely empty. A guest will have access to the entire property, and they can use it within the booking period. The other thing that you can do in Airbnb is you can host a room. So you can have a private room. Someone can come and stay in your house. They can live in your spare room, for instance, and they'll pay to do that. So bear in mind this legislation is essentially bringing together all the information that they were able to collect back in 2018. It shows that it gives you a breakdown that the shared room worked out at roughly 41%, and the entire home was 59%. In July 2018, it takes the data from Airbnb and lists whether they were occupied for a certain number of time, how long a guest would traditionally stay, and what that looked like in that area. Now, it was curious to me when I was looking at this, because I thought the first thing that you want to try and do is you want to look at what's the problems that they're describing. So for a government to come and bring in a rule, there needs to be a reason or a significant problem that would justify the rule that they're bringing in. And when you look at this section here, when they've used Edinburgh as an example, they've got 12,000 properties, and the government, in essence, what they say is that there's some problems with the likes of these, they call them disruptive technologies in their report. So it goes on to explain that with the disruptive technologies, platforms like Uber, Airbnb, and such like, they were platforms where the technology could match up, a host to a guest, or someone looking for a taxi, and taxi drivers, and that technology would be the middleman, and it could be spread throughout the world. And traditionally, when you have a business, they would have to purchase something. So, like for instance, if you wanted to be a taxi company, you would need to purchase a taxi or lease a taxi, and then you would go out and get customers. That you needed a taxi to do that. And if you wanted to be involved in the property sector, you would traditionally need to buy a property, and you would then carry out the action. Where these disruptive technologies were different is that they would have the technology that would marry the two of them up. They didn't actually need to be involved directly with the sector. So, for instance, Facebook is advertising, Uber is taxis, Airbnb is properties. So Facebook don't own any companies that advertise. Airbnb don't own any properties that they host, and Uber don't own any of the taxis that they have. So that's what they mean by disruptive technologies. So in short, it gives you some of the benefits that comes from short-term lettings. So bear in mind that the advantage of short-term lettings is there's some people that really require it, and they in fairness to them, they list it here in the report. So they've got things like reallocating corporate tenants. If someone is moving with their job, they can put them up in the property until they get something more permanent. People who are maybe looking to move to an area, they can try out a property on a short-term basis, figure out if it's where they want to stay, and then make a bigger commitment via purchasing a property. Owners who own their house and maybe are looking for some income. So maybe you work away, your property's empty. You can make some money while you're away. Maybe you've got a holiday home where a second home that you visit, and you're only there 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks out of the month, and you want to generate some income to cover costs. Another great tool, great way to cover your maintenance costs, maybe make some extra money. And with a lot of infrastructure work, which the government create through infrastructure projects, there's contractors that are looking to carry out that work, but they're generally not from the area, so they'll need somewhere to stay. And when they're looking for somewhere to stay over a period of time, generally they'll prefer something that is more like home. So a house or an apartment or a flat is absolutely ideal. It's more homely than, for instance, a hotel room. So you can see the appeal. So, and you've even got like existing homeowners. Maybe you've got a big property, the kids have moved out, you've got some spare rooms there, you can rent them out on Airbnb. You've got things like the Fringe. For instance, this report relates to Edinburgh. You've got things like, the Fringe, people visiting for any events that are on. So you can see that there's a supply and a demand. There's a need there. What it goes into as well is that they asked for what was the potential revenue that was generated from this. So one of the government's main functions is that they bang on about creating jobs. So the whole idea is that your population, the people that you serve, because the government is essentially public servants, the people that you serve are looking for you to make the best of what's there. And one of those things that people look for is the opportunity of employment. And there was some information that was checked out from the rental sector, which says that Scotland supports 15,000 full-time equivalent jobs and generates a revenue of £723 million of economic activity. So let that sink in. That in this report, they've worked out that there is 15,000 people that are employed through this short-term sector, this people letting their properties out on a short-term basis. And the revenue that comes into Scotland is an additional £723 million. So this is life-changing for people out there that wouldn't have otherwise had a job, or wouldn't have had, there wouldn't have been the money generated in the area. So you can see that this has got a significant impact, and that you can't deny that. So it's difficult for the government to make a cause that is a bad thing, because one of its main roles is to find employment, and it's very clear that the short-term rental market sector is doing just that. So it lists some of the problems, and here's where it starts to get a bit of an issue. And listening to Stephen Bartlett's podcast with the Airbnb creator, Brian, he went into some of the issues that they faced over the years. And when you listen to that podcast, you've got two business people that have a pragmatic view of the situation, and generally what they have is a view that they're looking at it from different perspectives. So there'll be people out there that do not give a hoot about what the sector is, couldn't care less. You've got people that completely rely on the sector. It's their job, it's their livelihood. They may have a business, and it's very, very important to them. And you've got some people in the middle that probably do okay and don't know how it actually affects them, but see it's quite as a positive thing.